I'm here in London. I'm taking a week-long short course. It is part of a program called Existential Coaching, and I'm not taking it to be a coach, which is interesting because there's a part of me that feels like I'm wasting people's time in the class because we do have to do exercises where we're in triads, like threesomes, where like I'm the coach, someone's the client, and then someone's like observing our relationship and like taking notes for the coach to improve. And I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. I was taking this class because I actually have been studying philosophy, as you guys know, for a while now. It's all been informally. I mean, to be fair, that's kind of just how I prefer to study anyway. Each day we're going to go into what I learned, all my notes, because somebody on my Instagram DM'd me and said, can you please share what you learned? Of course. And again, I was going to bring the whole camera. In fact, I did take the camera. And I just realized this is not a camera course. I'll have to do this every day where I sit here and do a sit-down video. And you guys seem to like the long-form podcasty type of videos, so boom, we're going to do that. Okay, it's one of these classrooms where like you're locked in. The teacher's up there, she's doing the slideshows. Like, it's not a laptop class. But that's all I took. I forgot my paper. So then I'm like, shit, what other paper do I have? I had printed this out before, like months ago, and this was just the paper that was there while I was in class for the exact same topic. Tell me that ain't cool. By the way, you need to read this. This is great. This is all great, and you can understand it. So existentialism is mostly about realizing that you choose almost, they wouldn't even say almost, they would say you choose every moment of your life. You choose how to react. You choose to take things personally. You choose to be in a classroom that you do or do not want to be in. Now, maybe some of these things are because you have to do them, like you have to go to work. Okay, but the existentialist framework would be to reframe that in your mind that yes, you have to do it, but you're also choosing to do it because you're trying to get somewhere that you want to get to. Or another pillar of existential coaching is to kind of say, make the implicit explicit. See, this is what I'm saying. It gets very therapy talk. Here's how I wrote it. Saying things that aren't being said. Let's give an example again. You hate your job. I feel like this is something that is common. People do not like their jobs. An existentialist would say, that's fine. You're still choosing it. You must still be choosing it for some reason. You're going to say, because I need money. What are you talking about? I need money to survive. I hate my job. That is such a like dead end sentence because you're not taking it anywhere. So an existentialist coach would try to take that hatred somewhere. You hate your job. Okay, so option A, let's change your job. Let's find a new job. Option B, let's go to school so you can do something else. Option C, just stay in your job and be okay that maybe you're not so into your job right now. Or actually, by just saying, I hate my job, you're choosing to not choose anything. You're choosing to not do anything about it, which is still a choice. Yeah, this stuff can get, I think, a bad rap because it can be kind of like confrontational and like your therapist is challenging you on things instead of being like, here's some medicine for your anxiety. Here it's like, well, of course you're anxious. You're choosing things all day long, choosing paths, and you can't predict the future, so how could you really know what's even going to happen? Of course you're going to be anxious. Everyone's supposed to be anxious. That's a normal part of life. The anxiety comes with the freedom of choosing things all day long. I think that's why I'm drawn to this one. Because while it may be uncomfortable, I feel like we're actually getting to the source of the problem. It's supposed to be getting people back to like their authentic self to realize that they might just be lying to themselves, thinking that they don't have other ways out. Can you see why I like this way of thinking? It's very much, I mean, I literally had a company called Shut Up and Go. Like, like formal papers signed with the government. It was called Shut Up and Go. Also, for all the skeptics out there about therapy, I say it because I feel like I used to be one. And I feel like I'm from a family who wouldn't take therapy seriously. That's fine. And so I feel like I'm coming to the material with that way of thinking still. Like, I'm interested in this topic, but at the end of the day, who is any therapist to act like they know what life is all about? I would say what is most helpful is someone who can articulate their thoughts. So that's really just a mastery of language, actually, knowing the right words to say, having the right vocab. Imagine you're the best therapist, you did the best studies, but you just don't know how to talk. So language is actually the most important. It's almost like you're casting spells on people. You're saying the right things. So it's language and it's philosophy. Realizing what we're doing. What are we doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you still texting your ex, Damon? Oh, maybe it's because you actually do still have feelings. Maybe it's because you're not actually taking this so seriously because you honestly feel like he'll always be there. And maybe that's why you feel hurt, that now that he's actually seeing somebody, it's reminding you that, oh, maybe he won't actually be there. And so it's causing you some sort of loss of identity that now you have to imagine your life autrement. Shut up! So a counselor, coach, therapist would be skilled in language, helping you decipher your thoughts. Honestly, that might be what it is. Not just that they're saying really good things, it's that they're saying things that you've been thinking, you just don't know how to word them. So it's not even them coming up with ideas. It's just that they can like name it for you. They can name what you're feeling and then you feel seen. I don't know who needs to hear this also, but the difference between psychology and philosophy, I didn't even know this difference till like a few years ago. Psychology is the study of what? The brain, the psyche, everything that's happening mentally. That's psychology. And I think most therapists would have studied psychology, right? Philosophy is asking bigger questions than the brain. The philosophers would be like, are you sure that reality is even happening? Are you sure that all the memories are being stored in the brain? What if the memories are on a different dimension? Philosophy is this, psychology is this. Again, that's why I like this approach, because it's more philosophical. It's taking whatever's going on in your life, looking at the context. Maybe you feel such shame because of the culture you grew up in. Not just because you have some mental disorder. Not a popular thing to be saying online these days. Somebody in class asked, how do we know who our authentic self is? Teacher says, when you cry alone and laugh alone, those are two of the moments when you're closest to your authentic self. Like, I don't think you can actually laugh unless you're in alignment with yourself. Like, if you can make your own self laugh, or if you're crying alone, you're in touch with your authentic self. And she said, yeah, of course, it might tell you that you're lonely. Okay. Pain is in cure. The cure is in the pain. You might be lonely. All right. Now what? So, correct. I am lonely. And now you can work from there. Now what do you want to do about the loneliness? I mean, it's also like what, the vessel for self-exploration and insight. Actually, I think it'd be easier to get to know yourself from that point than if you're happy every day. Why are you lonely? See, most people would probably shut this out. They would put on a rom-com. They would go get the melatonin. They wouldn't sit with it. This would be like, we're going to sit with it. We're going to sit with it and understand why you're feeling lonely. So use it while you got it. Be a lonely girl. In a lot of Eastern thought, the self doesn't even exist. You know how here in the West, Europe, and the United States, every single book you see is about getting to know yourself. Self-help, literally. The genre is called self-help. I believe it's in Buddhism or Hinduism somewhere. The self doesn't exist because they believe in reincarnation, that your actions this life will impact your actions in the next life as somebody else. It's all just temporary. Like, who you are in this life is not who you're going to be in the next life, and in the next life, and the next life, and the next life. And actually, the true nature of reality is realizing the circle of reincarnation, working your way up the ladder of reincarnation, keep being reincarnated into like a better life, a better life, a better life. This is the cycle of what, samsara, I think it's called. Death and rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth. And the true nature of, like, I guess yourself, even though it's not a self, your soul, I guess, is to be liberated from this constant cycle of reincarnation. Like, that's the goal. They're not so concerned about the self. They're concerned about being enlightened enough to be released from the cycle of samsara, which is rebirth and death, rebirth, death, rebirth. You'll reach nirvana or moksha, the state of bliss, and you'll be pulled out of this cycle that we're all stuck in. But it seems like, honestly, they're both similar because you need to be a good person. And so in either case, to keep being reincarnated to better lives, you need to be a good person and do good things. And also, self-help is all about becoming a better person by way of learning about yourself. Yeah, that was a roller coaster right there. Again, this was day 1 of my official philosophy class. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Well, Today I had very mixed feelings. Hold on. I'm realizing that maybe I read the syllabus wrong because everyone in the class, I think I mentioned, is already a coach. So most of them have clients, most of them have practices, most of them have been in this world for a while. Half of the class is doing these role plays where I have to take the position of a therapist for literal therapists. And I'm kind of like, what am I doing? Like, I don't need to be here. Like, this is not my job. You know what I'm saying? The role plays, it tends to be like 10 to 15 minutes where I would take on the role of the therapist or coach and help the other person go through something. But I've never learned how to do that. Like, and I get in my head, I like start to freeze. I think I've frozen up every single time I had to do this because I get in my head with thinking that I need to do it a certain way. Because isn't that the case? Like, there wouldn't be a school for this if not. If we were to just sit down and you were to bring an issue to me, I feel like I could honestly help you do that. Like, I feel like I would be skilled with that. I could bring you in, make you feel comfortable. We could talk it out, and you would leave the session with a few solutions. Now, put me in this classroom, and I feel like I'm getting too caught up in, was I not supposed to ask a question like that? Oh, is there a better question to be asking? And because everyone has studied this, I also feel some sort of judgment, which is probably my own stuff. Yeah, I feel like I'm being judged, which I mean, am I not? Like, there's literally an observer watching, and the teacher's going around, observing us as well. So I literally am being judged. But then it's not just, we're not all beginners. I'm being judged by people who have been doing this. And I think there might be some link here to school in general. This is how I always felt in school. I'm getting too much in my head with how is everyone else doing this when I've had success doing it a different way. So when I try to do it that way, I freeze and I can't do it. When I try to do it this way, I'm good. I can do this. The bottom line is that at the end of each day, we're asked to, I guess, kind of recap our experience, like what we learned. And I was very honest and I said, look, I don't know if this is the class for me because I don't think that this is just not what I was expecting. I can do it, but like, I don't need to do it, So I told her and a few of the classmates, like, I don't know if I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. And for some reason, it's not even that I'm going to lose the money. It's that I was so excited. It's all very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, also today early, like we had to do 2 different role plays. And I found myself when I was the client, I say interesting a lot. Okay. And they noted that. And their notes for me was that it sounded like I wasn't letting it actually land. Remember we talked about yesterday? Like, you can receive it. All info is received somewhere. You don't have to accept it as the truth, but it's something that was said. It can be a statement. It doesn't have to be taken as a judgment. Receiving it somewhere doesn't mean you have to receive it here, but you receive it in your being. You receive it, but you don't have to receive it. But it doesn't have to land. So the teacher said something about how when I'm saying interesting, it's as if I'm not letting it land. And I think she used the word superficial, like, in that way. I don't know. I found it interesting. It's interesting. No, in my defense, this is my defense. The word interesting is a great word because I'm operating from this framework. See, I'm starting to use all these words. I'm starting to do the therapy talk. I'm operating from this framework that nobody has the full truth, absolute truth. Nobody has that pure truth. So why are we acting like just because the therapist is in the room and it's like a very intimate, intense moment that they do? When I would say these kind of skeptical things, which by the way is not meant to be difficult, it's because I'm actually trying to learn. Like these are just thoughts that I have. So I can be wrong. I'm saying it because I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. I say interesting and maybe it looks like it's not landing because maybe it's not landing. Because you could say A, you could say B. Either way, it's all interesting and they're interesting. Either way, it's all interesting to me because we don't know what the ultimate truth is. You could say A and I live my whole life based on A, and then I get to my death and I actually learn that actually that was wrong and it was B. So I say interesting because I don't like to hold on to any one true idea. When I would challenge these things or be a skeptic, they would always come back to one sentence, and that sentence is, okay, well, what do we know for sure in this situation? And that, they kept coming back to that, and that's not something that I guess works for me, because we don't know anything for sure. The phenomenological approach that everything is based in an experience. We can only build off our experience. We can only build off what we know. And that seems to be enough of a solid base for everyone else in class. And this is like, honestly, like probably page 1 of the book. And I'm already like, wait a second. How do we know anything for sure? This is, again, the disconnect, because I'm taking the class because I want to be asking those questions, and I want the whole room to be discussing those questions. When everyone else is like, okay, phenomenological approach, let's move on. Let's use it in the therapy. Let's do the role plays with that approach. And I'm over here trying to have a different conversation. So that's why, okay, talking this out. That's why I'm like, I don't know if I need to keep going. You guys are like, okay, so don't go. Look, I'm all for therapy and all for coaching. But another thing that I want... No, I think this is smart, and this is also the most existential thing that I could be doing. By not just accepting what everyone has told me or taught me or what the books say or what the famous philosophers say, and to create my own meaning in the world. Like, to not just accept what everyone says and be like, oh yeah, that's the way to do it. No, I think by challenging, you're doing exactly what every famous existentialist philosopher wanted you to do. Now, the role plays, the sessions that we do were like 10 to 15 minutes. And I found myself, when I was being the therapist, always trying to find the solution. Like, let's get to the bottom of it. And they call that leaping ahead, leaping forward. And I was like, yep, I definitely do that. And again, I guess this is my problem. It's like, there is according to therapy and according to the master's programs, the one that I'm like apparently in, like, there's a standardized way of doing things. And I've never followed the rule book. So I have a hard time following the rule book. Actually, I think it's a little absurd that there would be a rule book for this from the existentialist approach. Remember yesterday when I was talking about how existentialism is all about making choices and finding meaning, and you're basically creating life on your own terms. You're not letting the context of your situation, the religion you grew up in, your parenting, your relationships, or your parents' form of parenting you, your culture. You're not letting those things get in the way of what you truly believe in. You're always going to be influenced, right? You're always going to be influenced, but you're essentially saying, okay, that's great, but now who do I actually want to be? So yeah, I have a hard time believing there's a right way to do this. Because who gets to say what the right way is? So I guess, yeah, trying to talk this out to be like, why do those roleplay sessions make me feel so uncomfortable? Yeah, it's because I feel like I have to do it a certain way, and everyone else has been trained in this certain way, and when I'm not, I'm being judged because they're like, oh, wouldn't have asked that, or here's how I would have asked it. It's like, well, maybe I wanted to ask it this way. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if this is the class for me. Can I just say, though, I would take any of them as my therapist or coach. Any of them. They are all, in their own way, comforting. It gave me hope. I know that I'm kind of like, it feels like I'm talking shit right now. It gave me hope that I was like, wow, these people are going to change a lot of people's lives, actually. No, and including myself. Like, if you were to come to me, if one day I decide to open up a consulting firm or take on sessions or something, I honestly think that I could do it as well. I have to do it in my way, though. And yes, I wouldn't be certified, but the people coming to me would know that. If they want a certified person who did it by the book way, then they can go over there. That's fine. The same way, if you want a certified French teacher, you can go over there. If you want someone who's been in France and who's been on these streets, you can come over here. Oh, and just another observation. When you are in therapy, I think a lot of times you might say things that don't hold much value. But because you're in this like intimate, really intense, quiet room with all these eyes on you, I say all these eyes because we are in a classroom with multiple eyes on you. You might say something that's so unimportant to you, and all of a sudden, just because it came out, it seems like the therapist will be like, oh, but is there more there? And I have to be like, I honestly don't think there is. And I don't struggle with this. I'm not even thinking about this. See, in therapy, they'd be like, oh, so you use the word struggle. It was a slip of the tongue. Freud always said, like, if there's it's literally called a Freudian slip, Freudal slip. There are no coincidences, whatever you say. Like, if you're getting plastic bags at the grocery store and you say, hey, can I get a sex? Instead of, hey, can I get a plastic sack? Freud would be like, oh, it's because you're looking for sex. Like, I don't know, Freud. I don't fucking know about that. I think English is hard language. Okay, so today's notes. Okay, here's an example without giving anything away of what happened in the client-coach session. At one point, the coach, like, grabbed her water across the room. And when I brought it up in the observations, her first reaction was, oh my God, I know, and I knew it in the moment. I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, actually, I liked that. Because it reminded, if I were the client, I'd be like, oh, right, okay, maybe it's not all so serious. Like, we can take a breath, because I noticed the client, like, shifted in his seat, and he got comfortable again. Perfect example of how you're probably not supposed to do that, because it's distracting. When I actually found it nice, because it reminded me of, oh yeah, you need water. You're a human too. You don't have all the answers. You're just trying to help me out right now. You can get some water. Like, maybe the solution is that I don't go to class tomorrow and I just go to Foyles bookstore and I find these books and I sit up in the cafe on the 5th floor, or whatever it is. If you don't know, you should go there on a date, or like take your parents there, or go for coffee, or just go and read a book. Perfect place. The one at Charing Cross. What if I do that and then I can also come back here and talk? Yeah? I think I might do that. That already feels better. So I didn't go to class. I did not go to class today. And I guess I was a little disappointed that I didn't get a response from the teacher. Because I thought what I said was like sweet. But I'm sure that therapists are actually trained in, like, you're not going to hear from people. Like, they're just going to dip out of class. You're never going to hear from them again. That would have been interesting, actually, to hear. You know, everyone in that classroom's thoughts on when that happens. Actually, wow. It doesn't matter who's in your life, whether it's a friend, family member, whoever. Like, there could always be a day when they just don't come back. Sorry. Like, hey, did you guys actually know that everyone in your life, they could just disappear one day? Wow. But I did go to Foyles, so I did say what I was going to do. I ended up picking up 2 books. So the first one is this. Now, because I'm not from the UK, I don't actually know what level this is for. I don't know what AQA means. Advanced, me just going straight. It probably advanced, right? Like, that's why I picked it up. I realize I'm such a workbook guy. I mean, hello, workbook. And this one is so good. So it's mostly about Christianity and Buddhism. I'm over here for the Buddhism part. You know what I realized? I had a connection today when I was in Foyles. Because I was in the philosophy section looking up existentialism books, and existentialism is a lot about recognizing your suffering, making your suffering mean something, and also realizing that suffering will always be there no matter how rich, how famous, how loved by your family you are. There'll always be some sort of suffering, like no matter what you do. Suffering even in the sense of, like, maybe you start getting bored. That's still like suffering in some sense. Dissatisfaction, right? And then I went to the religion section and I saw Buddhism. And from what I know about Buddhism, it is also all about realizing that life will always have suffering. And I was like, wait a second. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to Buddhism. Because it sounds similar to existentialism. How they recognize suffering as a natural part of life. So I picked this elementary school level book up. It's so good. This is such a good book. I'm about to learn so much about Buddhism and I guess Christianity O2. Like OC, me too. Wow, O2. Okay, so for the longest time, I always said, like, I'm not a religious person. Okay, except when I was 15 and going to church for Abby Smith, this girl I had a crush on. And then in the past, 15 years since high school, I've been like, yeah, I'm just not into religion. I don't like really what religion does. It's people tend to cling on to one idea as the full truth, and they don't tend to explore other ones. And I just never liked that a lot of people from my hometown called themselves Christian, but they couldn't tell you one thing about Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism or anything in philosophy. So it just felt very inauthentic. Following that same logic, I don't feel the need to believe in these religions because I don't really feel the need to, like, adhere to one school of thought, but I also don't know enough about each religion for me to say that I don't believe in it. So I thought now would be a great time to study. All right, if you're this far into the video, I'm gonna just let you know my honest opinion on religion in general. That we all know that war and colonization have happened a lot in the past, whatever, 2,000 years. It makes a lot of sense to me that if you're colonizing a place, if you're taking over with your brute force, that you tend to wipe out the local population's culture, which is to say their religion. So to me, it feels also kind of inauthentic to choose a religion today. The main religions today would be Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism. There's a few. It's like, these are the ones we're just choosing from today. So how do I not, like who's to say that you actually don't believe in like a Native American religion? It's just like we wouldn't know about it because it's no longer there, because the stuff that we hear about today is just the stuff that kind of survived throughout the hundreds of thousands of years of colonization. So I'm going to keep it quiet because it's 11 o'clock right now. So today at Foyles, I bought 2 books. I bought the religion one, and then I bought this, Teach Yourself Philosophy. Yeah, looks like the U.S. government designed this. It's actually my publisher. This is the publisher that did my book. Some dude named Douglas Adams said in this book, there is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear. What? That's my shit right there. There is another theory which states that this has already happened. Stop. Sorry, I had like 3 drinks at the Standard over by King's Cross. You got me fucked up. I love that. All right, I gotta tell you guys something. So Socrates was one of the first philosophers that we're aware of, okay? He would roll around town asking people in the streets, like one of these TikTok interviewers, he'd be asking them questions about themselves. How do you know we're alive? Just like kind of being a nuisance to society. So the society was like, you're being so annoying right now, you're dead. He felt like society was operating from this very superficial place, and he thought the way to get around it was to ask people questions that they'd never thought of before. People found him annoying, so they ended up killing him by hemlock, so this poison that he drank. Okay, my question. They were okay to kill Socrates because they thought that his like inquisitive nature was corrupting the youth, and that it would, cause youth to be questioning too many things and they're going to dismantle society, right? Socrates' student, Plato, lives on to tell this tale. And he creates like basically a school called the Academy to do the same thing. How did they allow Plato to create the Academy, which is basically doing the same thing that Socrates was doing? And not only that, but there was a period of history, I think it's year 400 to year 1400, the Middle Ages. They call these ages also the Dark Ages because a lot of the documents from that time didn't survive. Okay, how did the documents not survive for 1,000 years in history? But we still know that Plato and Socrates were people. I'm just like, not only did so much documentation get lost during that period, but also the majority of people couldn't read. So again, I'm like, so how did texts from earlier than the Middle Ages survive that time if so much documentation was lost or people couldn't read? Then what's the point of keeping it around? I guess the world's bigger than just like maybe one area. So as I was diving more into Plato, I learned that one of his main ideas is called the forms. He was saying that this is so weird. Okay, I was about to talk about a triangle and I look to my left and I look at a triangle. That's fucking weird. That's so weird. Like, why is there a triangle right there? It's literally a shape of a triangle. Forms is basically the idea that we have never in our lives ever seen like a perfect triangle. We've never seen a perfect triangle like in real, like that's just a picture of a triangle so that we can create that. But in reality, like, or what we think is reality, we've never actually seen a real triangle. We've seen things that resemble triangles, but it's never a perfect triangle. So how do we know what a perfect triangle actually is? I guess actually when he was writing this, he had never seen a perfect triangle because there were no computers around to even create a perfect triangle. But now today we can create a perfect triangle, which is that. The whole point is he was saying back in the day that because we have never seen a perfect triangle ever, or like a perfect square or a perfect circle, because, I don't know, an apple is not a perfect circle, or a coconut is never a perfect circle. It's never perfect, right? So where does this idea of perfection even come from? Plato says that there's some other realm which contains all of these perfect forms, and that's why we can think of these like what it would look like to have like a perfect circle. Even though I guess back when he was living, there was nothing that was perfectly circular. Again, now it's probably different because we do have computers that can make a perfect circle so we can see it. But back when he was alive, there wasn't you never saw a perfect circle. You always saw like approximations. So he was trying to say that this world that we live in is actually not real. The real world is this world of forms that has all the perfect these like perfect forms of things we see. Another example they use, I think, is like the image of a horse. We all kind of know, if I say horse, you know what a horse looks like, and we all have this image of a horse in our head. But all of our horses are not the same horse. It's like some kind of thing that has horseness to it. Like this mental picture that we all have in our brains right now of a horse must exist somewhere. This is this other realm that he's talking about. So yeah, he was like a little mystical. Yeah, after that experience taking LSD like 5 years ago, 100% on Plato's side. 100% on Plato's side. Oh, this is also something I learned. Teleology states, what does it say? I write, tout qui se trouve dans l'univers sert à quelque chose, mais à quoi sert-il l'être humain? So everything in the universe is for something. And he states the example of an oak tree. An oak tree's purpose is to create acorns, which then like help squirrels. Everything seems to have its place. Rain exists because it brings moisture, which helps fertilize the soil. Bees exist because they make honey, and the flowers exist because the bees can get the honey from the... You see where I'm going with it? So it's like everything in the universe, everything in the natural world exists for some reason, but what does a human being exist for, actually? Like, what is our actual purpose? Because everything else seems to line up nicely. Yeah, super happy. Super happy. This is a great book, and I would recommend it because it's digestible. Like, I was eating this up in Foyles Cafe, and tomorrow, I'll be right there. Same place, same time. I made so much progress today, which was a miracle, because there was such sexual tension at Foyles today. I don't know if that was just in my head. It probably was. A lot of times it's just in my head. Clearly, like, yeah, I might be showing a little skin today. And there were times when, like, I just needed to stretch, okay? And, like, the muscles were out in Foyles. And, like, when I would do this, then, like, all of a sudden he would do that. And, like, it was, like, a muscle showdown. And then, I think he was, like, afraid, because I tried making conversation multiple times. Like, oh, can I plug this in? Oh, okay, is yours charging? Okay, can you watch my stuff while I go to the bathroom? Yeah. Okay, well, you do what you can do. But I can't do everything, Jesus. Literally Jesus today, because, I did about 70 pages in this book, and I started the Christianity chapter. Okay, wow. Not that I have ever believed in Christianity, or, like, I don't think I will, but I learned so much today because my friend Rosa, who I did a Red Wine Talk with probably 5 years ago, you might know her now because she's really popping off now in, like, the R&B world. Okay, so today's philosophers that I studied were like David Hume, John Locke, René Descartes, la la la. If you've ever watched the show Lost, it's actually really cool because there's a lot of philosophical elements, and they took a lot of famous philosophers and they named the characters that. But of course, when I was growing up, I didn't know that these were philosophers. There's a character named Locke, there's a character named Rousseau, I think there's a character named Hume. So today at Foyles, I started off with the Big Bang. There's a chapter on, like, the beginnings of the universe. To tie it to that religion book as well, maybe there's people watching this who are atheists, and I would say, like, I wouldn't consider myself an atheist, but I'm definitely, like, I like atheism in the sense that you're, like, rejecting, you're rejecting just, like, society's groups. Like, it's society's selected group thinks, you know, like, it's fine if you don't believe in a god, but then, like, would you just believe that all of a sudden, out of nothing, there was just a big bang, and then, like, that was it? And then somehow we're here? By means of evolution? There's still, like, a missing element for me. So atheism doesn't do it for me either. So I definitely think that there is something going on. Like, somebody had to have started this. Okay. Why should the unmoved mover... Basically, they're saying that the unmoved mover is this concept, like, we can keep tracing things back, but At a certain point, somebody had to be an unmoved mover. Like, somebody had to just start this thing. Why should the unmoved mover we are seeking be identified with God? Actually, when I was looking at this book, I happened to open up to that page and I read that sentence and I'm like, yep, I'm getting it. Never have I considered that, okay, maybe the Big Bang happened, but who knows? Why does it have to be God? In fact, I think in Hinduism, they say, congratulations, the Big Bang happened, whatever, 4.6 billion years ago, but this is just like yet another Big Bang. This isn't the first Big Bang. This isn't the last Big Bang. Like, this is one of the Big Bangs. This is a cycle of life, but it's not the only one. There's been many before and there will be many after. It's just like never. It's an ongoing thing. Yeah, see, they do address atheism, and they said an atheist might insist that it randomly, like the universe randomly popped into existence out of nowhere, but this seems to be an evasion of the issue. This book is good because it doesn't take any sides. It's just like, okay, so for example, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't really resonate with me. Like, I'm not too interested in it, but it is a whole section of philosophy, like hundreds of years. For example, John Locke, apparently one of his main ideas, one of his main questions that he was trying to answer was, if one day you wake up and you are in somebody else's body, are you technically that new person or are you still you? You see what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm like, I don't even care at that point. And John Locke was saying that even if you wake up in somebody else's body, knowing that you're still you, because you have the memory of your past identity, you are technically still you. Again, like, I don't even care. I don't care. The other one was David Hume, and he was talking about how just because something happens over and over and over doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen again. And yet we always seem to think so. And I'm like, of course, like, not that we can predict the future, but you got to go with patterns at a certain point in time. We learned about Solipsism, which is the view that the only person who exists is me. Like, you guys don't actually exist. René Descartes is famous for the saying, I think, therefore I am. He was trying to find proof that we are actually existing. And this sentence apparently does it for him. It doesn't really do it for me. He was saying that I'm able to doubt everything in the world, question if it's real, but the one thing I can't question if it's real or not, that I'm actually sure that it's happening, is the fact that I'm thinking right now. So because I'm able to think right now about everything else not existing, that must mean that I exist. You're doubting that everything exists, but you're unable to doubt your own existence because the fact that you are actually thinking. So that must mean that something is existing in order for you to be thinking about this whole thing. Maybe, like, I guess. I don't know, I guess. But not really, because even you thinking that sentence is sufficient could have been coded too. Like, I don't think that's not proof. That's not proof, Descartes. I finished it. Yeah, baby, 217 pages. So I wanted to go over a few things. There's a part of philosophy that just doesn't really do it for me, and I think it's when we start talking about logic. So when you start studying philosophy, there are different kinds of philosophy. Like, you can study aesthetics, like why we find certain things beautiful and other things not, and it's kind of this like unspoken language. Then you have ethics, what is morally right and wrong, how can we really judge that, are there like absolute moral truths? Then there's logic, how can we even know anything? All of those, I'm kind of like, And there's metaphysics, which is my personal favorite. It's all about like existence, reality, time, free will and determination. Like, are we really in control or somebody controlling us? Yeah, I don't know, I'm into that kind of, that's my shit right there. All right, then the book got to Nietzsche, and Nietzsche had me dying over here. So Nietzsche, is God even real? So while all the other philosophers, like in the history of philosophy, have been questioning the existence of God, is God a thing? Should we even follow God? La la la. Nietzsche's like, God is dead. Like, he's famous for saying, like, Nietzsche is famous for saying God is dead. And therefore you are able, and you're actually responsible to come up with your own code of ethics. You're supposed to not just rely on how other people, or specifically religion, tell you to live your life. You figure it out. You figure it out. Most people will admit that although they do not absolutely love their life right now, they fully intend to love it just as soon as... That was weird. Just as soon as blank Fill in this blank with something like one of the following. Just as soon as I finish school, just as soon as I find a better job, just as soon as I find the right person, so on and so forth. When you're young, you're completely convinced by this illusion. As you get older, somewhere in middle age, it will dawn on you that every just as soon as is replaced by another, and there's really no end to them in this life. Okay, paragraph keeps going on and on. Christianity invented. He was always trying to start shit. But, like, I'm on his side, I think. Christianity invented the just as soon as mentality by teaching that this life is just a transitory struggle on the way to heaven. Not that anything's guaranteed, but no, please, believe in this one path that's been set forward, Christianity or whichever other religion, and maybe, hopefully, at the end, you'll get into heaven, and then you can start living. Like, why wouldn't you just allow me to live now and still be like a good person while doing so? It's the whole idea of like having to prove. Like, why does anyone have to prove? I feel like I'm getting into a club. I don't want to have to prove to you because I don't feel like anyone should be higher than another. I feel like we should all be on the same level. God. No, like, why? What is with this like bouncer mentality? Busy bounce up out of here. Sorry, you see, I just got like lost in this again. Like, oh my god. What he said was so controversial, like especially back in the day. In asserting that God is dead, Nietzsche does not mean to be taken literally, that God was once alive. On the contrary, God never existed. You're making it worse, Nietzsche. In Nietzsche's view, he was always just a story the masters told to keep the slaves from rebelling. And I don't think he actually means like literal slaves and literal masters. What he means is that society can be broken down even today into people who have a master mentality and those who have who have a slave mentality. So masters in society would be the people who are in control of business, politics, power struggle between masters and slaves. Masters are the strong ones who have succeeded in imposing their will, like basically getting their way, and slaves, the weak ones who have been imposed upon or who let others kind of decide their fate for them. Yeah. He goes on to say, it's not the goal of everyone to become a master, but more so for all of us to transcend this master-slave morality. He implores us to evolve beyond good and evil. Which I think is his book. I think that's the title of his book, Beyond Good and Evil. Yeah, that's the title of his book. To translate all of this into one easy-to-understand sentence, Nietzsche wanted us all to call our own shots. And if you let anyone else in your life call your shots for you, whether it's your religion or your parents or your guidance counselor, then you have the slave morality. Nietzsche is not everybody's favorite because he did have like a dark nihilistic side. Nihilism is the thought that we're not, like, none of this matters. Why are we here? Why do we even try? One goal leads to another and another in an aimless series. All of our apparent achievements, things, are really just superficial distractions from a hollow lack of substance at the center. I love this man. All right, so then I get to Wittgenstein, and he was all about language, okay? So he writes, one of the most misleading representational techniques in our language is the use of the word I. Okay, like that sentence I don't really understand either, but then we keep going. Perhaps Wittgenstein is right that language creates the illusion of an inner person. He's trying to say language created the concept of I, like I guess the concept of the self. This person I pointing back to me. What's fascinating is like that the concept of I, yes, I'm talking about my physical being, but it really is, oh my god, mindfuck. It's referring back to somebody in my head somewhere. Like, who's speaking right now? Who's in there? I. Like, yes, me, but I. I who? Okay, so then I got to Sartre, and I've always liked Sartre and his concept of bad faith. I think it explains a lot of society as well. Okay, then they got to this part. He was talking about nothingness. Say you're about to meet up with a friend at the coffee shop, and you arrive, and you don't see your friend there. All of a sudden you feel this sense of like the absence of your friend. Like your friend is supposed to be there, your friend is not there, now you feel a sense of absence. This kind of absence is different than your mom being at the coffee shop. Like you weren't expecting your mom to be there, so it wasn't even in your brain, so there was no absence to be had. Both your friend and your mom are not at this coffee shop. But you feel the absence of one of them, even though nothing is happening in the room. Both people not there. Both people are not there, but yet you feel the absence of one of them. Yeah, I literally wrote, good example, but I don't know what to do with the idea of absence. Like, the next page is about bad faith, so let me just explain that. Bad faith is when people are essentially lying to themselves that they have to play a certain role in society. So his example that he always uses is he's in this restaurant, the waiter comes over and he's being such a waiter. Hi, welcome in. He's talking in a very waiter way. He's really like nailing his role. And Sartre is like, this is odd. Why don't you just act like a real person? Like, yes, I understand you're at work, but you can also just be like, you can just talk to me like a normal person. You're just at work. Why do you have to put on this role as a waiter? Ever since I learned about this concept, I can't go I can't go to a restaurant in the United States without thinking about it. American servers do it so well. They're playing this role that they think they have to play. I mean, because their boss might fire them, whatever. But when it comes to my table, I would rather you stop that. Like, can you please just talk normally? The teacher walks in the room and they put on their teacher hat. And they're talking in a very teacher way. Maybe this is why I had a hard time doing the role plays in the therapy class, because I felt like I had to put on a therapy hat and I felt like I was playing a role that, again, after knowing about bad faith, I just felt was I just felt like it was inauthentic. Like, why can't I just be who I am? Why do I have to act professional? Why do I have to be professional? Why do I have to be serious? That would be me playing a role, which is fake. I'm acting in bad faith. I'm not being genuine. His movements are so efficient that they're mechanical. He smiles considerately without ever quite looking you in the eye. He's playing a role. He has turned himself off. He doesn't want to think or feel anything because his job doesn't allow it. As we wrap this video up, I just want to say I didn't even know what philosophy was till I was probably 28. That's so weird. I just looked at my screen and there's the number 28. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know why we needed it. It felt very dusty of a topic. And now, I'm like, you know what? It is dusty. Because it's that old. And that's exactly why we should look into it. Yeah, I don't know. Can I say this? Like, it makes me feel, like, closer to people who lived, like, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. We all have the same questions. I think that's super interesting. That's interesting. I'm sorry. And because philosophy attacks such dense topics, and often, like, uncomfortable ones to think about, I just feel like anybody I meet who is also interested in philosophy, I could have a real, genuine conversation with them that wouldn't be bogged down by superficiality. Because you're a real ass bitch. That's what. Yeah. I feel like we could have a real conversation. That's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you like this series. Me going back to school. I'm dropping out again. Looks like I'm dropping out again.